Welcome to the City of Bakersfield Planning Commission meeting. This television broadcast is brought to you by the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 10 a.m. You can download the agenda for this meeting at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over this evening's meeting, Chair Daniel Cater.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to call to order the January 16th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Cater.
Here.
Commissioner Coleman.
Here.
Commissioner Bell.
Here.
Commissioner Bowers. Commissioner Lomas. Commissioner Rudnick.
Here.
Commissioner Wade.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for attending tonight's Planning Commission meeting. This commission provides an opportunity for public participation in the development process throughout the City of Bakersfield. The Planning Commission considers a wide variety of projects, including subdivision maps, zone changes, general plan amendments, and much more. When applications are received, the City Planning Division analyzes the request. Planning staff will present the facts about the project, along with their recommendation to the Planning Commission, who will approve the item or make a recommendation as appropriate. Our goal is to carefully consider each project and make a decision that will balance individual rights with public welfare and the general well-being of our community. Before we move on to public statements, I'd also like to acknowledge that to the commissioners that we have some new representation from the city with us tonight. We have Mrs. King representing the City Attorney's Office this evening.
Thank you, Chair Cater.
Thank you. As well as Mr. Fuentes representing the Building Department. So with that, welcome. Glad to have you. We will now receive public statements. This is a time reserved for anyone who wishes to address the Commission on any matter not on the public hearing portion of the agenda. Please note, if you are here for items 5A through 5F, this is not the time to speak. Does anyone in the audience wish to address the Commission? If so, please come forward and state your name. Seeing no public statements, we will now move on to the consent calendar non-public hearing items. These agenda items typically involve housekeeping or administrative matters that do not require a public hearing. Does any commissioner wish to remove a consent calendar non-public hearing item for separate consideration? All right, seeing no commissioners, may I have a motion to adopt staff's recommendation on the consent calendar non-public hearing items?
I'll make a motion to accept the motion. Pardon me, my brain's not working. The consent calendar for non-public hearing items.
Thank you, Commissioner Rudnick. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Wade. Commissioners, please cast your votes. It's a double click, and we should be good. Oh. Now, clerk, could we do a roll call vote? Or?
Sure.
All right, it's a new year. We'll figure it out.
Motion passes with Commissioner Bowers and Lomas absent.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can you do a roll call since it didn't show up on the screen?
Okay, sure. Commissioner Cater.
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman.
Yes.
Commissioner Bell.
Yes.
Commissioner Rudnick.
Yes.
Commissioner Wade.
Yes.
Thank you. We will now move on to consent calendar public hearing items. The next agenda section includes public hearing items that are considered routine or non-controversial. These items have been reviewed by staff and are conditioned in accordance with the requirements of the municipal code. The planning director will read each item on the consent calendar to ensure the public has an understanding of the items to be considered. If you would like to speak on an item, please come forward after the items are read and ask that the item be removed for discussion. If the item is not removed by a member of the public or a commissioner, the commission will vote on all items in one motion without further comment. Mr. Coyle, will you please present the items on tonight's consent calendar agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. On this evening's agenda, we have Project 5A, which is an extension of time for vesting tentative parcel map 11475, which is a proposal to approve 3 more years to develop this project to build multiple family homes located at 223 and 225 Blomquist Drive. Project 5B is an extension of time for vesting tentative parcel map 11865, which is a proposal to approve 3 more years to develop this commercial retail center located on the west side of Gosford Road between Panama Lane and Harris Road. Project 5C is an extension of time for vesting tentative parcel map 11879, which is a proposal to approve 3 more years to develop this commercial retail center located on the west side of Gosford Road between Pacheco Road and Harris Road. Project 5D is an extension of time for revised vesting tentative tract map 6617, which is a proposal to approve 3 more years to develop this master planned mixed-use development known as Bakersfield Commons, located on both sides of Coffee Road, north of Brimhall Road. Project 5E is zone change 19-0397, which is a proposal to change the zone from PCD to C2, or a more restrictive zone, on 9.21 acres, located at the northwest corner of Stockdale Highway and California Avenue. And finally, Project 5F is Plan Development Review number 19-0416, which is a proposal for a revised Plan Development Review to allow a car wash in place of an automotive tune-up service facility in a C2 PCD zone located at 6501 Panama Lane. This concludes my reading of this evening's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle. At this time, I will open all of the consent calendar public hearing items. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on a consent calendar public hearing item? Again, this is not the time to take testimony, just request that it be moved to that portion of the agenda. Seeing no one in the audience wishing to move an item, are there any commissioners wishing to move an item? I see Commissioner Coleman.
Yeah. I'd like to remove item 5E from the consent calendar, please.
5E. Okay. Are there any other items or any other commissioners wishing to remove an item? Seeing no additional commissioners, at this time, the public hearing on items 5A, B, C, D, and F are now closed, with 5E moving to the public hearing portion of the agenda. May I get a motion to adopt staff recommendation on the consent calendar public hearing items 5A, B, C, D, and F, incorporating all staff memorandum and revised staff recommendations?
I'll make a motion to approve all the consent calendar items 5A through F, excluding 5E.
Okay. May I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Key?
Did he say including E or excluding?
Excluding.
It was a little bit circuitous, but that's okay. Yeah. All right. Commissioner Wade with a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Can we do a roll call vote?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe if technical,
I don't have yours. I don't
Okay.
have your vote, Larry.
we have one voting machine down.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and do a roll call vote. If that's okay. Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Cater,
Yes.
Commissioner Coman,
Yes.
No.
Commissioner Bell,
Yes.
Commissioner Rednick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wade.
Yes.
Thank you. We will now move on to the public hearing portion of the agenda.
Thank you.
Tonight, we have one item removed from the consent calendar, item 5E. Before we begin, I'd like to explain how this hearing will be conducted. Staff will first give a more in-depth report, then we will provide those in favor of the project an opportunity to speak. After those in favor have spoken, those in opposition will be allowed to speak. If we have speakers both in opposition and opposing the project, each side will be given 5-minute total time to rebut the comments of the previous speakers. Please note that is a 5-minute total time for all speakers, so be succinct during that portion. Individual speakers may ask questions during their statements, but the questions will not be answered until the public hearing on that item is closed. If you'd prefer, written comments may be provided to the clerk, who will provide copies to the commission. Please be respectful of others participating in the hearing by not repeating the remarks of previous speakers and presenting any new information or any new comments or thoughts in a concise and clear way. This time, Mr. Coyle, would you please provide us your staff report on item 5E?
Thank you, members of the commission. Zone change 19-0397. McKentley Malik Architects, Inc., on behalf of Dollinger Mount Vernon Associates, who are the property owners, is requesting zone change 19-0397. As you see on the map before you, the project is located on 9.21 acres on the northeast corner of Stockdale Highway and California Avenue. The project site is a developed commercial center. The project proposes to convert a vacant retail building, the former sports chalet, into a fitness center. The changes consist of converting approximately 38,000 square feet of retail space into a facility for indoor fitness uses. The zone change request would change the zone district from a planned commercial development to a regional commercial zone district on 9.21 acres. The original PCD zone was approved in March 1994 for the development of retail and restaurant use. A notice of exemption was prepared for this project in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act. This project has been found to be categorically exempt from the provisions of CEQA in accordance with CEQA Guidelines Section 15301, existing facilities. The city did not receive any public correspondence regarding the project. Staff concluded that the project is consistent with existing and surrounding development because the project site is primarily surrounded by existing commercial uses, including retail, restaurants, and office commercial. Staff concluded that the project is consistent with the general plan because the land use designation is general commercial, which is consistent with the C2 zone. Staff concluded that the project is consistent with the zoning ordinance because the proposed uses are permitted uses within the C2 zone. At the time of development, the project will be required to comply with the Bakersfield zoning ordinance and city development standards. Staff recommends approving the zone change from a PCD to C2 and adopting the notice of exemption. This concludes my staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle. The public hearing on this item is open. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the project? If so, please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed.
Ken McKentley, McKentley Malik Architects, architect for the project. Good evening, Chair, fellow commissioners. I think if you could do me a favor and just go back to the aerial that was on the screen a minute ago, I can kind of explain the key reason why we are seeking changed from the PCD that was set back in 94 for reasons, and that they were trying to develop a shopping center, make sure it was consistent. If you look at that aerial, you can see to the left across California a center that's actually larger than the site that we're trying to rezone. That is a C2 zone. The little piece that's cut out of the corner of the shopping center is also a C2 zone. At this stage in the evolution or the maturity of the project, we don't really fully understand the reasoning behind keeping the PCD zone, which from a development aspect creates a lot of problems with re-tenanting and moving forward on making tenant changes in the project. I mean, this is a good example. We're not actually adding a single square foot to the project. We're actually trying to put a use in place of another use. Both uses are approved in the PCD zone. They're approved uses. The parking is consistent, yet we're going through this process. And it seems, to put it bluntly, a little unfair that we're doing this when the other centers aren't. Not that that's the purpose of this, but it just seems like at this point we should be able to streamline the process and kind of be treated the same way as all the other properties around it. We are basically the same kind of center. That's the main concern. Also, the C2 zone clarifies issues with signage and other things, and I understand that the zoning ordinance is actually, my understanding is it's been improved, or the ordinance has been updated. So I think the level of concern that there might be that somehow things are not following the zoning ordinance is probably put to bed with that. Anyway, I just want to kind of clarify that's kind of where we're coming from. And we've had a Sport Chalet box empty, well, since it was Sport Chalet, I think it's well over 5 years, and it's been pretty tough to fill. And this kind of a process makes it a very tenuous situation with tenants, and try to keep them in tow and again, fill these vacant voids. So I appreciate your help. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the project? Seeing no other speakers in favor, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition to the project? If so, please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed. Right. Seeing no one in opposition, does any commissioner have any questions for the public on this item, or staff? Remember, this is a time to express, not the time to express opinions on the matter, only a time to ask questions. I believe Commissioner Coleman. Okay, Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you. So most of my questions are for staff. My understanding is that this replaces PCD, I guess it's 20-94, is that correct?
Yes, this would remove the PCD that was placed on that site in 1994.
Okay. There were a number of conditions cited on that resolution. Have all those conditions been met?
The conditions that have not been met have been pulled through the various subsequent actions taken by the Planning Commission and City Council. So I don't have a list of all of the conditions that have been satisfied so far, but I know that we are consistently bringing those conditions forward.
It looks like in spring of last year, we approved the remodel or whatever's going on there where Mexicali used to be. And we applied some conditions at that time that affect the whole parcel. And so the question is, how does this affect that?
Well, I think you put some conditions on the entire shopping center.
Right.
These folks are only asking for a portion of that center to be rezoned to C2 from PCD.
I mean, that's not what I understood from the map. You have that whole parcel listed from PCD to C2, which is everything except for the Chick-fil-A.
Well, other portions of that PCD site have been pulled out of the PCD. As you mentioned, the Chick-fil-A and Vitamin Shop are two, but this is only for 9 acres out of the remaining 16 that are still zoned PCD.
All right, so what happens to our conditions that affected that 9 acres that we approved last spring? It mainly had to do with trees.
We actually sent a staff member out to the site today to check on the condition of the landscaping there. And we noted that there were some trees that had been missing from a landscape island on the east side of the property, as well as there was one tree well in the middle of the parking lot that is missing a tree. So to the best of our knowledge, there are 5 trees that could be placed on the site and to satisfy that particular requirement. The landscaping for the entire center, though, is not the focus of this particular project, which is just changing a zone in order to be able to change uses in the former sports chalet facility.
There were some conditions in the original proposal that appeared to have exceeded what we would normally require for a C2 zone. And like, for example, the 10-foot fence along the property line between the commercial and the residential behind it. And I think there was a 10-foot landscape barrier behind the property. How does changing this zone for us giving up this control to make it C2 so he can do what he likes, how does that affect those kind of things?
Well, as you know, with a PCD, the Planning Commission can require higher standards than is outlined in the zoning ordinance. However, the original PCD was placed on the property in 1994. Since then, you've added large retail development design standards to the zoning ordinance, which was not in place in 1994. City Council has taken a number of actions over the last couple of years to essentially raise the bar for the city of Bakersfield. They've done that through an enhanced landscape ordinance, which would apply. And now they have determined that they want to set those same high standards for large retail development centers among commercial activities in general. So staff is very well aware that we are being asked to review projects with an eye toward requiring a higher level of design.
We're still in the question period, not the comment period. So, but just a question to clarify something you said. Can you clarify that the new tenant and the proposed use for the vacant space is not really contingent on a zone change? You made the statement that the two were kind of interconnected. Can you clarify that a fitness center would be permitted in a PCD zone?
I believe the fitness center would still be allowed in a PCD zoning district.
So so they're sort of unrelated, is what? Because your earlier comment made it sound like the zone change was contingent on the proposed new tenant. Okay, thank you. But they are not. They're independent of one another.
I believe so, but the matter before the Planning Commission this evening is both a zone change and then a change of use, going from a retail use to an assembly use, essentially.
Yes. Do you have questions or? Okay, Commissioner Wade. Oh, Commissioner Wade, look at you.
So, I'm sorry, I think I may just didn't hear the answer. I don't know the answer to Commissioner Coleman's question. The new conditions that we put on due to the Mexicali redevelopment there, will those be negated if we approve this today?
I do not believe that those conditions go away. They've all been pulled forward.
Okay. And just one more question, sorry. Refresh my memory, the reason why there was concern about the trees in the, in this development before was because they had been chopped down. And so we decided to take action to make sure the landscaping was going to be properly addressed. Is that right?
Yes, they were removed. It's my understanding those trees were removed without any approval from the
Right.
city.
So somebody from the city went out there today, and there are trees missing. Is that correct?
Yes, in terms of a total number of trees,
Yeah.
there are some missing. There were
But the landscaping's not up to code.
not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Rudnick.
Can I make a motion that we approve?
We're, sorry, we're still on questions, which actually,
Well, it's a question that if I can make this motion, in other words.
if you could proceed with.
Yeah, in other words, I just kind of want to simplify it. It seems like the concerns is that we don't want this developer to not be held accountable to what he was held accountable before. Can we just make sure if we do a motion from here, that if we grant this, he does not get released from any of those other conditions? It's conditional grant, am I saying that properly?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, Commissioner Rudnick.
so that would solve, I hope, everybody's concerns, right?
Well, we will get to that portion of the agenda. And
Oh.
actually, we have no opposition comments, so I am going to recommend that we close the public hearing on this item, as there's no comments to rebut, and move to commissioner comments and action. Are there any commissioner comments? Commissioner Rudnick.
I'd like to make the motion I just asked a question about, is that we would like to approve it upon condition that they meet every condition that was approved prior with the other zoning, if I'm saying this properly.
Sorry, Mrs. King. I can't remember. As chair, do I have,
Perhaps if we look at the May 2019 revisions, so when you make your motion, you can mention the May 2019 revisions, and that those be incorporated into the moving forward with the PCD to the C2.
Okay, I move that we approve item E with the May 2019 revisions moving forward.
can I ask a procedural question?
Yes.
We have numerous commissioner comments to receive before we make motions. Can I table the motion until all comments are received?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. I hear your motion, and we will get to it, but I would like everyone to have the opportunity to speak before we close the hearing. Commissioner Coleman first.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had pushed the speak button before Mr. Rudnick made his motion, and so I'm not going to talk for the sake of talking, believe it or not.
All right. Commissioner Wade.
I'd like to ask the developer a question, if you wouldn't mind.
I'm the architect, but I'd be happy to try to answer your question.
Sorry, you're representing the developer.
I am, apparently, yes.
Okay, so I just like some clarification on, we've had issues in the past in regards to the landscaping in this development, and it seems like these concerns haven't been addressed at all. Do you know, is there an intention to
I'm a
address
little
this?
peripheral to that, but I know that we did have a landscape architect address the issues, and I thought if it wasn't in process that it had been completed. I was not aware there were missing trees at this stage.
If I could, there were 31 trees that were removed. There have been 37 trees to replace those 31. However, there are still opportunities for 4 or 5 more trees on the site in order to be fully compliant with our regulations and the landscape plan.
Thank you. I don't think it's too much to ask for us, for the highest traffic intersection in Bakersfield, to have all of the wells that, where a tree belongs, to have a tree in them. Particularly given that there was bad behavior before from the developer,
Believe
from the owner, I should say.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to kind of, to get that on the record.
No, that's good. And I think the conditions from the earlier approval hopefully did cover that as well. So I know that that project is under construction. Landscape hasn't been done yet, but hopefully that all gets finished at the same time so that, you know, it gets picked up.
Thank you.
We hear you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll use this opportunity to say a few words. I had the opportunity to speak with both client representation and the planning office and city attorney about this parcel, and I think in looking at the adjacent properties and in looking at other retail developments in town, I think that we have the opportunity for somewhat of a compromise. I think the PCD zone has been created to create public accountability, public interaction, public participation in the development process. In speaking with the city attorney, it sounds like there were issues pertaining to the types and quality of signage that they were able to provide, as PCD references a C1 and not a C2 zone. And so I think working with the developer to make that process easier and more transparent. And as Commissioner Wade mentioned, this is a very prominent center. This is a larger center. C2 kind of allows for, based on my understanding, more signage consistent with tenants that are looking for this sort of square footage, and I think responding to that makes a lot of sense. Given a tour throughout Bakersfield, I mean, I think the parcel across the street was significantly older as a retail center. I think the history of this site was commercial office buildings for a while, and then it was rezoned in not the modern era, but the 90s, which is more modern than what was across the street. And so I think, you know, looking at this as a modern evolving center, a majority of centers that we are doing in this town that have this amount of square footage and this amount of prominence on prominent intersections are being zoned C2 with a PCD overlay. I think that that potentially, as we consider this item tonight, would provide the public an opportunity to participate in the process while still streamlining some of the complications that PCD presents with signage, as well as needing 2 hearings before an item is reviewed. That this would, Mr. Coyle, could you clarify that the PCD C2 overlay kind of streamlines it to 1 hearing, right?
That is correct. A straight PCD has to come before both the Planning Commission and City Council, where a combining zone, in this case C2 PCD, would just come back to Planning Commission.
And so that would be, I mean, I think Mr. Rudnick has made a motion, and we will we'll vote on that after everyone's had a chance to speak, but I'd like to also suggest another motion. Can we just load up the motions? That's not our normal protocol. Or should we vote on one and then make the motion after?
That would probably be better if you,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Oh, so my motion would be to approve the C2 zone with a PCD overlay. So that would become I believe that's the verbiage, right? A C2 zone with PCD overlay? Okay. Are there any other comments, questions? Nice.
So just to be
Commissioner.
clear, if we wanted to move that direction, we have to vote no for the other one? If that was, assuming it's second, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to follow.
I'm happy to withdraw my motion. That'd be fine.
There you go.
Okay. Sorry, this is not as linear as it normally is, Mrs. King. I apologize. Mr. Agar threw you in the hot seat. Okay. Oh, Commissioner Bell.
Sorry, I just last minute here. I want to make clear to ask this of Director Coyle. So on a PCD, we're still, as compared to a simple site plan review with a C2, you're talking the difference of a 3 or 4 week process for a site plan review compared to 2 or 3 months in the PCD process. If it stays in our purview, is that, can you give me some timelines that are
Yeah, those estimates are pretty accurate.
So my difficulty in just going to a strict PCD overlay over a C2, you give them some value, but this is a mature center now. It's built out. There's no more pads to be built. Would it be the intent of staff that this is the exact reason to reduce that additional move, to give them a C2? Is if you've said as staff you'd like this approved. You've suggested that this is something that you recommend. Can you give me a good reason why you're recommending it rather than an overlay?
Well, I think I may have alluded to it earlier, but the Planning Commission has also recognized that, one, it's easier for a developer to make changes to respond to a changing retail market.
Right.
If you go with the C2 zone.
Right.
The C2 zone would provide the developer with a specific list of all permitted uses, as well as those uses that might require a conditional use permit. And I know for developers, they like certainty. So if you gave them C2 zone with that list of permitted uses, they would know what tenants they could get to fit that.
Yeah, timing obviously is of the essence when you're developing a high-end site like that. So I'm a little, I certainly understand the ask from the architect's point of view. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Coyle, can you clarify one item then? What scale of project is considered a project before a center like this is being renovated, that it would need to come before the commission? Because we don't, every time a Verizon moves into an empty storefront, we don't see that at Planning Commission. So what constitutes a project on a PCD overlay that would need public review?
Well, in this case, we're looking at a change in use, so that would definitely.
Okay, so the transfer of a retail sports center to a fitness center.
Correct.
Okay, understood. All right, well, I see no other commissioner comments, and I will make my motion. Can I make a motion, or do I? Yeah, I can do it. I will make a motion to approve a zone change to a C2, adding the PCD overlay as a condition, and ask for a second and a vote.
I would second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Commissioners, please cast your votes.
Motion passes with Bowers and Lomas absent.
Thank you. Moving on to communications. Mr. Coyle.
The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission will be held on Thursday, February 6th at 5:30 p.m. here in Council Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Coyle. Are there any commissioner comments? Seeing none, I will move to adjourn the meeting at 6:09. Thank you.